Are you a business looking for a fresh new way to reach potential customers? Well, you need to get airtime on IT TV, a 24/7 streaming and on-demand TV service online and on Roku. With Roku having a potential reach of 62 million people, it's a perfect opportunity to reach potential customers through affordable commercial and infomercial spots. Visit us online today at itnetwork.tv.
Good morning, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Roundtable Talk Show. I, of course, am your host, Sharifah Hardie, and I just want to say happy Thursday, or better yet, happy Friday, since it's my Friday, and we will not have an episode of the Roundtable Talk Show tomorrow. I get to rest this weekend, enjoy the holiday, and spend a little time with family. I hope you do so as well. But we are going to enjoy today's show on Thursday, and we're going to meet 3 new friends. But like I always say, please go ahead and share the show because there's someone in your network, someone in your house, a new entrepreneur, a new business owner, someone who needs to change their life. And they will not have this information unless you go ahead and share the show with them. So as I always say, friends don't let friends miss out on the Roundtable Talk Show. I want to go ahead and introduce our first guest, Dr. Ron Stotts. Dr. Ron is an international speaker, best-selling author, doctor of chiropractic, mindset expert, and transformational guide. He guides entrepreneurs on a personal and professional journey to create an inspired life more than they ever imagined. Good morning, Dr. Ron. How are you?
Good morning. How are you doing? Yeah, it's great to be here, and just before the holidays, and good to see all of you.
Absolutely. It's good to see you as well.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? And what are you passionate about?
What I'm passionate about is really changing the whole standard of leadership in the country. I feel like leadership is really our opportunity to have really affect the greatest change in our society. And so I work with entrepreneurs and executives and really look at how to really shift into a much more conscious level of leadership. Oftentimes they find themselves struggling with the old styles and whatever they've been doing took them into successful levels, but now they're ready for more. And that's when I come in and take them deeper within themselves so that they understand how to act what they need to go further in their life.
Absolutely. So when people want more, they talk to Dr. Ron. I am going to come back to you.
That's a good way to say it.
I'm going to come back to you. I want to go ahead and introduce our next guest. We have the incredible Mr. Glen. We have all men on today's show. This is going to be fun. Glen Bhimani. You have to say that one. Bhimani. I'm horrible with names. I tell everybody I sound so much more intelligent after the introductions. But Glen is going to talk to us. He is the CEO of BPS Security. Good morning, Glen. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How about you?
I am excited. I'm excited to learn more about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? And what are you passionate about?
Well, my name is Glen Bhimani, and I'm very passionate about that I created a security company that prioritizes the client. Because in the security industry, a lot of security companies prioritize their profits over what's the right thing to do for the community and for their clients. And we're very prideful about that. We also have transparency pricing that you can look up on our calculator instead of you having to call us and try to figure out a price. Because a lot of security companies, well, if they know the client has deeper pockets, they'll charge more just because they can, instead of just providing that transparent pricing to the clients up front.
Mm-hmm. And what are you passionate about?
I'm very passionate about helping the people in the security industry, specifically our employees. It's a very low paying industry, and we've been able to pay $17 plus more since 2019. So we're at the beginning of this living wage before it even became an issue just a year ago. And that's what we're really passionate about doing here. It's providing a better living for our employees.
Wonderful, wonderful. No, we are going to come back. I have some questions for you, Glenn, but I want to go ahead and introduce my next guest, Mr. Michael Kuhn. Michael was born and raised in New York City and has lived through a lot of adversity during his lifetime. Additionally, he has the first-hand experience and strong knowledge of OCD, PTSD, and alcoholism. Furthermore, he has written a very inspiring book that he wants to promote titled Beyond the Shadows and Into the Light. Good morning, Michael. How are you?
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm excited to learn about you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
No problem. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I was born and raised in New York, and at the time, my father had passed during the holidays. As a young man, and then furthermore, I was taken care of by my stepfather, who was very abusive toward myself and my older sister at that time. As life went on, as I get older, I lived with a lot of fear, and I found that alcohol was a great escape from the fear. And a lot of my fear was pretty much internal. A lot of OCD, which was based on fear, and I found that alcohol removed a lot of my fears, but then it eventually caught up to me. And I'm here to explain that no matter how tough life is with your emotions, with your anxieties, with drinking and that kind of thing, there's still a way out. And I'm hoping I could give people some kind of motivation to help themselves, and that's what I pretty much stand for.
Absolutely. We're going to motivate the people today. We're just going to go ahead and dive in to the conversation. I want to go back to you, Glenn, for a moment, because one of the things that stood out to me is you mentioned um, the security industry, some people or some companies in the security industry being more focused on the bottom line and less focused on the customer. But do you believe that that's just exclusive to the security industry?
No, it happens in many industries. It's not necessarily security, but when the safety of the community is in your hands, it's more detrimental than, say, someone who sells a product that uses a cheaper plastic and it breaks a couple of days later, a month later. Yes, you're cheating the customer, but safety is very important. And when somebody's hiring you and you're not putting that safety first, it can be. That's why you see a lot of news on the times where security guards are shooting innocent people or they overreact and they hurt somebody when it wasn't warranted.
Is because they weren't putting the people first and putting the safety first. They were just focused on the bottom line. But I think that applies to a lot of different industries. Dr. Ron, what are your thoughts? Do you see that in different industries? I mean, with your experience?
Are you talking about the wage or?
Not necessarily specifically the wage, but
Oh,
just putting the bottom line first in companies as opposed to the people, client
thank
first.
you, thank you. Yeah, that's old style leadership. I'm talking about leadership, and that's really a classic example of old style leadership. You know, more conscious leadership. Everyone as they move into the higher states of consciousness through their life, that they find is that they not only become more aware of themselves, what they're feeling, thinking, and what consciousness they're playing on, but they become more sensitive to others, more concerned and caring for others. They become more empathetic and compassionate with others, and they begin to recognize that by supporting the people who work for them, and even beyond that, who they buy from, who they sell to, they really create an infrastructure of security and safety. And all of a sudden, everything starts becoming more collaborative, cooperative. And from that place, people feel more valued. They feel like they end up making more commitment to their work. They end up adding a great deal more value to their work. So a lot of the problems that a fear-oriented, less conscious leader is what they use to say, well, I can't pay more and I can't take care of them because all these terrible things might happen. And the bottom line is what's important. Turns out the bottom line will automatically, they will be much more successful, much more productive. I mean, all the research shows that you'll at least increase your production profit by 40%. But I mean, I see with my clients, they're even raising it well beyond that, just because they've become more conscious and are taking care of people. So what Glen's talking about, you can change the wage, but if you change the leadership, then all of that naturally flows forward.
Mm-hmm. So, Glenn, what are your thoughts on what Dr. Ron had to say about changing the wage, but not changing the leadership?
He's right about that. When we first changed the wages to $17 an hour, we were still having issues with the security guard. So we had to change how we hired people, how we interviewed. Our entire process had to change to get that difference. And he's correct. Wages by itself is not going to give you a better outcome. You also have to make other changes. And what he said, changing the leadership, I changed those processes as a leadership thing with the managers, and it did help. But it took us a couple of months to change with that. It wasn't overnight. I thought it would, but I mean, we all know that's not how it works.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And Michael, your focus is really putting people first in everything that you do and helping people.
That's what I do exactly. Currently, I'm working with the autistic population, and I find it very, very rewarding making a difference.
Do you think the difference that you make has to do with the wage that people are paid, or the leadership style, the environment that they're in, or what are your thoughts?
Pretty much, it's just a great feeling. I'm being compensated financially at the same time, but more importantly, it's the difference you feel when you leave the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
After the workday, this feeling of satisfaction and knowing that you're making a difference on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. So what motivated you to write a book and become an author?
I've overcame a lot of my adversities, overcame my OCD. I've overcome my battles with drinking a day at a time. And I think I can help people. I think that letting them know there is a way out. If you're struggling with anxiety, or if you're struggling with OCD or alcoholism, there is a way out. And that I explore that, firsthand in my book, and I go into great detail on how I did so. So nothing is impossible with terms of those battles I struggle with.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting that you say, because I've heard people talk about overcoming alcoholism. I've never heard anyone say I've overcome OCD. I mean, at some point, is it a trait that you have some aspect more or less for the rest of your life?
Okay, it's always there, but it's not a struggle on a daily basis. I've used techniques, and I go into detail in my book on how I overcame a lot of my issues regarding that.
Mm-hmm. So Michael said, you got to read the book. You got to get the book. You got to read the book, buy the book. That way you figure it out.
It's available on Kindle.
Okay, I thought you was giving us the list. It's available on Kindle, Amazon. Where else can we get this book? Since you won't give me any information about how to change our lives. That's okay.
So,
Dr. Ron, to help us change our lives. Dr. Ron.
well, that's exactly right. I mean, when I got out of the Marine Corps, this was back in the Vietnam era, and I was definitely suffering from PTSD. I had a chemical imbalance as a result of that, and to be honest with you, at 20, 22, I was a complete mess. I had a divorce. I lost my two sons in a custody battle, and so it's I'm sure I got to the same place back then that Mike talked about, where you look at your life and you realize you have to change it. And a lot of times the people who come to me have gotten to that place where they realize, okay, what I'm doing is working and I need to change it. And my journey really took me became an inner journey. We're so conditioned to looking outside of ourselves and so conditioned to being of what's outside of ourselves that we feel lost. We feel lost in the chaos of life. But as we begin to really look within, as we learn to breathe, quiet our mind so that we can look within, we begin to notice all the emotional backlog that we have. We begin to notice this monkey mind that's running our life. And so it really begins in that healing, with the immediate challenges that you're having, of course, but it really comes down to healing the emotional backlog from childhood. Michael said it well. It's as you're coming up, your parents have a huge influence on your life. You're a little infant, you're helpless, you can't even roll over when you begin. Looking outside of yourself for that love, for that attention, for that care. And of course, that's the most important thing to a child. They want love more than anything else. Of course, wanting that more than anything else, they'll do and become whoever they need to be to maximize the amount of love they can get in that family of origin. And it's in that journey of survival and getting love that we form ourselves. We let go of parts of ourselves. We diminish parts of ourselves. We develop ourselves to get more love and attention. And the journey really, to be quite honest with you, becomes one of when you need more, when you want to increase your leadership, when you want to enhance your life, you have to kind of go back and really access those parts that you left behind when you were a child because you didn't know how to handle the emotional stuff in the sport. And so now you really have to kind of go back in, hopefully with guidance from someone, like myself or others, who are really helping you reparent that child. And in that reparenting, there's that kind of rediscovering those parts that left behind, healing those parts and integrating them back into yourself. You become whole. And that, oddly enough, that's where you get that unconditional love that you've always wanted, because it's always been within. And, so, being a parent, I don't want to be negative about this. I am a parent, but it's, there's no such thing as a perfect parent. Anybody who's been a parent knows you can't do it perfectly. And so the children are going to be at the effect of your family issues. And of course, if you were a perfect parent, that would become the family issue for the children.
So
it really is a journey of healing. Yeah. It's a journey of healing and becoming whole. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, Glenn, I see you're smiling, you're nodding, you're enjoying what Dr. Ron has to say. What are your thoughts?
He is right about childhood. It really molds a person when they're older, depending on what they go through in life. And at the same time, no matter what happens to you when you're young, when you're an adult, you make your own decisions, and it comes down to personal responsibility to overcome your past, but also to learn and teach yourself. I know my wife has a joke with me because when I don't know something, I go to Google or YouTube, and she's like, "Where you learn at YouTube?" And the alarm side of the business, I went to YouTube to learn how to do alarm systems and access control and all that. And now we're doing very well in that side of the business as well. And a lot of employees will come to me like, "Well, I don't have money to go to school. I don't have this. I don't have that because I grew up poor." I'm like, "I grew up poor too. There's nights I went to bed hungry without any food, sometimes twice in a row. But now I own a successful business because I put personal responsibility instead of blaming my parents for growing up that way. And I taught myself the necessary skills and talents that I needed to be a successful entrepreneur. And unless people make that mindset in their minds and put that stuff behind them, what happened as a child, it's going to be very difficult for them to get ahead of time, in their life, because that's emotional hurt that they had is going to keep them back longer rather than being able to be successful, be happier. And like Dr. Ron said, there's no such thing as a perfect parent. We can say we're perfect, but we'll be lying to ourselves. I have a little girl. She's learned some bad habits from me, but she also learned some very good habits. And we're there for her every single day. So I know at the end of the day, we're going to teach her everything we can. But when she's older, that's going to be on her to make her own personal decisions.
Yes, I definitely agree. I believe that children are the most resilient human beings ever, and all children need is love. When you hear what Glenn had to say, Michael, what are your thoughts?
I think there's some great things to say. Myself, I never went to bed hungry as a young man, but I never had that kind of love and nurturing that Dr. Ron was referring to. But a lot of love has to come from within to be at peace with yourself. And I thought Dr. Ron has some great things to say as well.
Absolutely. Dr. Ron, when we're discussing personal responsibility, letting go of your childhood, and what are your thoughts?
Well, I think in the big picture, that's absolutely true. And I think, when we look at a child who's in a tough situation, we see them as a victim, and they really are. They're at the effect of, and they can't really control anything. And I agree with what Glenn was saying, where as you become an adult, you have to take responsibility. You can't still be the victim, or you're going to just really never be able to do much with your life. Where I draw a little different line is I think if for basic survival, that's a great tactic. But for people who are really trying to access their best, their highest potential, they really have to not only move from that victim to taking responsibility for their life, they really have to go back into that past and heal it so that they're not subconsciously the effect of it. I mean, the truth is that about 5% of our thoughts are conscious. And with those 5%, we can really go, okay, I'm going to become this, I'm going to do this, and do the best I can. And that's great, that's perfect. But there's that other 95% of our subconscious thoughts that have full access to our emotional backlog that are really running rampant with our life and sabotaging, limiting, holding us back in so many ways. And so on a survival basis, to just accept that you're responsible for your life and move forward is a great choice. And I certainly support that. For those who really want to access and become, access more of who they truly are, that includes intellectual ability as well as emotional stability and even spiritual awareness, then you really have to do that inner journey where you are healing those past issues and really acknowledging, expressing, and releasing the emotions that you weren't able to as a child because you just didn't know how or had the support to do that. So, yeah, it's just, and I frequently say it's what level do you want to play on? Because the higher the level you want to play on, the deeper you have to go. And the deeper in you go, the more you can reach out and not only enhance your own life, but enhance the lives of those around you. And that's where that whole concept of higher level leadership comes in.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. One of the topics that I often speak about, though, is this idea of normal. Dr. Ron, you have mentioned several times the word heal, heal, heal. But sometimes people don't understand what they need to heal, what needs to be healed, what needs to be changed. Because someone's like Michael said, he said, I never went to bed hungry. So that wasn't his experience. That wasn't his pain. Whereas Glen went to bed hungry on a lot of, a couple of days back to back. So we have different experiences. So as we get older, we don't know what normal is. Say, for instance, you have the young child who, when they come home, their family has a lot of guns around or uses guns. There's guns sitting on the kitchen table. This is normal for them. People walking around with weapons. Whereas someone else who's never seen a weapon in their life, they're like, okay, this is not normal. So as we get older, we have to understand that there are things that have affected us that we may not have realized have affected us. What would you say to that, Dr.
Absolutely
Ron?
true. It's absolutely true. I a lot of times I'll be talking to other psychologists. I also have a PhD in psychology, and I'll be talking with them, and they're talking about the trauma of our childhood, and I look at them and I go, do you realize that we're not even aware of most of that trauma? I mean, unless it's something blatant like which certainly is not uncommon, but that was our normal. That's what we thought was normal. Our family was normal, regardless of how painful that experience was. And so it's a lot of times the people, when I'm working with them, we're going into areas that they didn't even know they were at the effect of. They didn't remember, or it wasn't on their radar. But it turns out to be some of the most significant aspects of their life that are holding them back. It's almost like going down the freeway with one foot on the brake, all that emotional backlog and things that they don't know how to deal with or look at, and the other foot on the gas pedal as they're trying to move forward in life. So the problem with that is the car wears down. I mean, all that struggle and stress of the car with your braking and gas pedal simultaneously wears the car down, wears our body down. So, in my work, I've been guiding them into taking their foot off the brake and being emotionally more intelligent, integrated whole brain thinking, and coming into and living their life from a quiet, centered place. And that might sound like some pie ideal, but I can assure you, some of my clients have had extraordinarily traumatic childhoods. I mean, and it's just a matter of if they can go in and heal those things, they're able to move beyond them and not be at the effect of them any longer. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. I'm just going to throw it over to Michael. For you, what did it take for you to realize that this wasn't normal and that you had to change and be different as an adult?
I knew that, what they alluded to, the other two gentlemen, was that no longer being the victim, and then moving forward in life, and then trying to find a way out, whether it was therapy or taking action and taking responsibility for myself. I think what it means it took for me to overcome my trauma from the past.
Mm-hmm. But was that some people have a rock bottom moment? They have that incident or they meet someone, but some defining moment where their life changed, where they knew they had to be better, do better, or they were going to be in this position forever or worse than where they were now. Was that what happened for you?
Yeah, I reached rock bottom both with my anxieties to the point where my OCD or my PTSD had weighed me down to the point where I really couldn't work to that level. And then, as well as with my drinking issues, I was really my life was unmanageable, and I knew in both areas I had to take responsibility and take action. And what both the gentlemen were referring to, not be the victim anymore, and to move forward with my life and to try to find a way out, which I did, which I go into detail in my book. That's all I have.
No, that's good. We got we gonna get this book sold because we keep referring back to this book, so we gonna have to get it taken care of. What's interesting to me, and I always make these weird connections in my own little mind, but it's like Michael is passionate about helping people change their lives. Dr. Ron, that's what he does. And then we go, okay, we have a guy who does security. But when you look at security, isn't that the heart of people, keeping them safe, keeping them away from harm? So isn't that along the same line, Glenn?
It is. And a lot of times, you'll be surprised how many people come and tell us all the things that they're going through. Like if we're a psychologist, and we just sit there and we listen to them, and sometimes we give them a little bit of advice or tell them, hey, things are going to be better. You just have to hold on. Have you tried this? This company is hiring, and it's because we're in front, and we're the first person that all our clients or visitors see. So people approach us, so because they feel safe with us being there, so they open up to us as well. And then from there, something does happen, we're there to take care of them, and I guess they feel like they're more important in that area, just because we can protect them, kind of like their shield, whether they're with us.
Well, let's go a different route then, because I can tell you right now, there are a lot of things that I can be, but I could never be a security guard. I mean, Michael talked about anxiety. You have to have a lot of anxiety and fear at times, I'm assuming, to just put your life, at risk for other people. Some people, I'm assuming again, might turn to alcoholism and different things like that to help them get through the day, because they have to be on guard, uptight all day, trying to keep other people from harm. So how do you help the security maintain in life?
So when we screen security guards, we ask a lot of questions in regards to personality anxiety, because you do need some anxiety, a little bit of fear. If you do not have any fear, you're gonna get yourself or someone else killed, because you're gonna think nothing's gonna happen to you. If you're too afraid, then you're not a good fit for security, and we don't hire those people. There was one person that said, "Oh, when I have my gun, I'll be safer," and I'm like, "Yeah, we're not gonna hire you. You doing that means you're gonna shoot somebody much sooner than you're supposed to when you overreact." and that person actually ended up shooting somebody that worked for another security company.
Oh, wow.
And the way we help them is that when we're training, we'll stop by, we'll see what's going on, try to do this. We also take them out. Like I have a manager that he likes to go clay shooting, so we'll go clay shooting to relax, kind of like golf. And you go to different sections, and each section shoots different, and they like to have fun there. Sometimes we take the other guys to the shooting range. We take them out to the movies. We order them food to make sure they know, hey, we're in an industry where, yes, we have to protect people, we have to be on guard, but you can also have fun. It doesn't have to be all work and work. They also participate with their clients, like Halloween parties or Christmas parties, and they get to relax while still being in the same environment. And they have a different security company come in and do the security then.
Have more questions for you, Glenn. But I just want to stop and learn. We're going to learn a little bit more about Michael and his book after.
Many people struggle today with alcoholism, and a large amount of those have faced PTSD, OCD. I have strong knowledge of these issues as I live through it. My name is Michael Kuhn, and I'm author Beyond the Shadows and Into the Light, which explores these issues and how I overcame these obstacles. I decided to write this book to inspire others that nothing is impossible with regard to mental illness or alcoholism. Hopefully this book might be helpful when dealing with tragedy or life when unfair things happen along your journey, and available at Kindle app.
I love it. Information from Michael. We just wanted to play that real quick. But I want to go back to something you said, because it was something that Glenn was saying about the anxiety. So I was like, okay, that reminds me of Michael. Yeah, see, it's my Friday, so I'm all over the place. But Michael, do you ever feel that you have gone too far the other way, kind of like what Glenn was talking about, as far as, we need some idea of anxiety. We need some type of being on guard. And there, you have to find a balance. How do you find a balance with overcoming OCD, overcoming your alcoholism, overcoming PTSD? How do you find the balance in life?
I think that you have to have some fear. Fear, like Glenn was alluding to, was fear is a great motivator in some ways too. Fear of failure, for example. So I've been I've been an overachiever at the same time, even though I had a traumatic past, and taking responsibilities as an adult, which the two gentlemen were alluding to. For myself, I use fear of it when I graduate the graduate level, when I went to grad school, fear of failure. So I internalize that fear and then bring it out to motivate myself to overachieve in life, both as an educator, education, as well as being an author of this book.
But is being an overachiever and I have no degrees in psychology, anything, but isn't the need to be an overachiever also aspect of the OCD and wanting to make sure everything is right and everything is perfect?
Yeah, it's all about balance. I mean, of course, going to have some fear, but don't let it overtake you with in terms of being successful in anything you do.
Absolutely. Dr. Ron, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I completely agree with what they're saying, so I'm not canceling anything up here. But I also recognize, by healing our past, we do become comfortable with our emotions, and we do have that balance of fear and concern and awareness and love, and our heart's more open. Whatever we use to protect our heart ends up destroying our heart. So I'm a big fan of really opening our hearts fully, having that unconditional love for ourselves, and really to relate with others in that same empathetic, compassionate way. But fear, to me, as we move up the ladder, Maslow's ladder of what we need, and fear really becomes just something you see as energy. In other words, it's just you're going through life, you feel something's going on, that energy is there to you, that you need to become more aware in that moment. It doesn't mean something's terrible is happening. It means there's a concern in that moment, and you become more aware. But for me, my emotions at this point, I would say, are really friends. They help me to stay aware. They help me to negotiate the world in a really comfortable, supportive way. What happens quite literally, if you want me to take a moment, it's as we're in our more standard, what I'd say, cultural standard of ways of thinking and accessing and using our brain, the higher brain, the higher thinking, there's really chemical gateways between the midbrain, where the amygdala, the emotional, and that higher brain. And while there's any level of stress in our life, those chemical gates don't open fully. So we don't really have access to our highest levels of thinking. As we heal the mind, the forebrain begins to develop. And that's really intended to be the CEO of our life. So rather than something happening, we feel fear. The amygdala, gets that hit, that neurological hit that, okay, we're feeling fear, and it sends out the message to about 5 different areas of the brain. That energy comes back, and the amygdala gets to be in charge. And it's really an overreactive, dramatic emotional center. So it's always, relatively reacts emotionally. Where as you've quieted and healed the past, quieted the mind, and the forebrain is developed, the forebrain, it's really looking at it from a perspective, okay, how do I take care of myself? How do I take care of others? What's the best reaction that I can have in terms of the bigger picture of who and what I am? And so fear and anger and all of those things just become energies that you're aware of and not overreacting in relationship to. So I think that's really called emotional, and at least from my perspective, it's not acting emotionally mature, it's being more emotionally mature. And so again, we have these different levels that we can play on, and there's not like one level's wrong or right. It's just you deciding what level of responsibility, love, healing, consciousness that you want to play on.
Absolutely. Glenn, we came back to you because you started this thought process in my head. But how do you, because I think Dr. Ron broke it down to us and explained it to us very scientifically, but how do you do it as a security guard, or when you're in security, managing your emotions, managing the fear? Was it something that you learned through a class? Will you learn through experience? How do you handle it?
I've learned it through experience, and that's really the only way you can learn it. When I was in Afghanistan, we were in fear constantly. Over time, you get used to it, like bombs exploding near your building. We would just sleep through it because we were like, okay, it's not affecting us yet. So we'd just stay in bed until it did. Then we reacted to it based on how severe it was. But even now, like Ron said earlier, uh, a lot of times we don't know what traumas we have because they're not an impactful full on, like some victims of domestic violence or stuff like that. But counseling is very helpful. I still go on and off to counseling to help with that unknown issues, and it's helped me, I guess, control my emotions, control my fear better, and it gives me the energy to do a lot more rather than overreacting. I'm able to use it to focus more on the business and on myself. And it's very important that people understand that just because you go to counseling, it's not that you're a failure or there's something wrong with you, because we all have issues. Every person in this world has an issue that
I
if you
don't.
go,
No, I'm just
it
kidding.
will
Go
help.
ahead. I'm just teasing, Glenn. I know I have a lot of issues. I got a whole line, a list of issues. But I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Michael. You're going to counseling. Was there a defining moment? Was there something happen, or did your wife say, "Look, you better go to counseling," or or else?
Well, I started going before I met my wife, and it was mostly for panic attacks, some stemming from the military. And over the years, it's gotten better. Now I don't get panic attacks like I used to. I used to get them like every week. Now I'll get them maybe once a year. So it's a big improvement from where I started 7 years ago to now. And it's important to take care of our emotional, but also physical. I'm lacking on the physical department right now, but I've been working on my emotional part, which has been very helpful. And also, when something happens when I'm doing security work, because I still go on post and stand next to my security guards to help them, and there's a fear-based incident happening, like a fight or something, I'm able to control that better and able to focus and direct my team a lot better than if I was, I guess, frozen or too hyped up on the fear.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So one of the things that kind of stands out to me is that we've all had different experiences, but you're all overcomers. You've overcame those experiences and you're helping other people to it. Now, Dr. Ron, when you hear Glenn talk about his experiences and going to counseling, um, with the people that you work with, do you feel that there's a concerted effort or maybe some of them resist going to counseling?
That's a good, good question. Um, well, I would say about half of them are proactive. They're coming in with the intention of healing. The other half have usually hit some level of discomfort that doesn't allow them to move forward in their life without getting some help. Their wife strongly suggests that they come, or husband. But yeah, for some reason, going within has become the scariest thing anybody could possibly do, or at least they feel that way. To me, I look at it because I kind of feel like I'm a guide. People come to me and they go, okay, I want to go on this journey and accomplish this or understand and heal that. And so I'm going, oh, okay, I know that territory really well. I've been on it personally. I've, escorted thousands of people along that path. So I'll take you on that journey. And so it's really a matter of me just guiding them through that. And the worst case scenario, and it's the result that I see happen every time, is they love and accept themselves more. So I don't know how that became the scariest thing in the world. I mean, that's I don't know why, but my goal is to really make, as Michael was saying, or excuse me, Glenn was saying, get normal. I don't think it's like if we could just normalize healing, if we could just normalize breathing. When I work with folks, one thing I notice immediately is they're not breathing. And the reason they're not breathing is because if they're breathing, they're down in their gut and feeling. So they don't breathe and they go up in their head and they kind of hide out in there with limited access to who and what they are. But, it's really a matter of, yeah, I hate to repeat myself. It's what level of freedom, what level of being awake, what level of do you want to play, what level of consciousness do you want to live in? That's what it always comes back down to. And the ones that recognize, because I do work with a lot of leaders and entrepreneurs, and they recognize that, you probably all hear that, oh, I feel like I'm not enough, like that. And I kind of jokingly say, well, no, you're not enough. But the caveat is, all you have to do is go within and access more of who, and you'll discover that you're more than enough. So maybe that's all I do in my work, is I help people access more of who and what they are, so that they understand the fullness of the capability, and so they can use it to create the lives that they truly want. That's always one that's far more amazing than they ever even considered living.
I understand completely. I want to go over to Michael. We're listening to Dr. Ron talk about creating this life that you really want. Do you feel that you have been able to do that based on the steps? Do you look back and go, you know what, I'm happier now, and now I have this life that I want because I overcame all these other issues?
I think that looking back, I've overcome a lot in my life, and a pretty most important thing is how that I'm content today.
Mm-hmm.
When I look back and overcome all these different obstacles in my life, And then moving forward, I'm always geared toward a better future. So, what steps do I need to take today to make that happen? And little by little, I've overcome a lot, and I've achieved a lot. And I try to keep everything balanced with my fear. Fear of failure is a good motivator to achieve a lot.
The fear of failure is a good motivator to achieve a lot. I want to go back over to Dr. Ron real quick. Dr. Ron, do people have relapses from your healing process? I mean, do you work with people and you're like, oh my God, because do you get healed? I guess is the one of the questions, long-winded question. But then 2 years later, they're back in your chair like, Dr. Ron, I need to be healed again. I relapse.
The answer to that simply is no.
Okay.
Because healed it deep enough and they have the tools to really take care of themselves comfortably enough that they continue to move forward. I'll just share with you, I have a month program that really is dealing with that core emotional backlog that really helps them. That becomes the healing and the foundation of their new life that they want to develop. And then I've got a 9-month program for people who are playing at a little higher level. They're really integrating all of what this whole new perspective, this whole new come from, this whole new, because they really do. They have access. They become smarter. They become more emotionally aware. They become more conscious. So how do you integrate and practice in your life so that you can make that a part of your life? And that does take about 9 months. That's why it's a 9-month program. Kind of maybe the birthing process has got something to do with that. But I have people contact me, which I'm always amazed, even 10, 20, 30 years later, telling me how amazing that transformational experience was for them and how they use the breathing and the tools and the techniques to move forward in their life, how their children are using those tools in their life. But it does, realistically, the 9-month program, unless anybody who continues to do significant personal transformational experiences or regular practices in their life, they're going to move forward from even that more basic work. But if somebody is really focused and wanting to become a higher level leader, then that 9-month program really clarifies, identifies, focuses that path so that it becomes much more integrated, much more supportive, and a much more a dynamic part of who they are and the life they lead and the leadership that they have. So I don't see anybody falling back at all in the work that I do. And to be honest with you, if I did, I would have to talking about being a transformational leader, because that wouldn't be a transformation. That would be a quick fix. And there are a lot of great quick fixes out there. And I'm like, those are great. But I'm more, let's get down and really have a complete transformation so that it not only lasts the rest of your life, but it enhances the rest of everyone's life that you're connected with.
Absolutely. So that makes me curious, Michael, do you feel that when you made your changes, you were doing some quick fixes, or you dug deep, went into the heart of the problems and transformed yourself?
I think transform myself a little by little over time. You try different things and you find things that work for you over time. And it wasn't just one thing or another. It was just the whole picture. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Were there people around you that were really part of this process for you, rooting for you, cheering you on, or people who just said, look, you got to be better or else?
I think that when you hit rock bottom, as I mentioned before, it becomes a great motivator to overcome your obstacles in your life. And definitely my godmother I'm very close with, who raised me after my father had passed, and after all the domestic violence that took place in the household, I'd say she's definitely in my corner. I had some close friends I've been friends with for decades that were in my corner, as well as therapists.
Mm-hmm. You need that support group. Glenn, you mentioned you have a support group that helps you through what you're doing.
Yes, I do. So I have multiple business coaches that help me through our daily stuff for the businesses. But it's much more than just they're being business coaches. I've been to their houses. We've gone to dinner together. It's more of I guess, a social group where we can turn to people, get the help we need. And like Ron was saying earlier, being at peace with yourself is the most important thing, because if it's a quick fix, you're not really at peace with yourself. So when something happens, you're gonna fall rock bottom again, because you really need to address those issues. But also, just because you achieve more doesn't mean you're at peace with yourself. Uh, you can always achieve more, you can always get more, but if you're not at peace, you're never gonna be happy,
Mhm.
because that comes from within. Happiness comes from within, not from what you're able to get. I've achieved a lot than most people have where I came from, but that doesn't mean that I'm uh, happier than they are, because it comes from within. There's people that have less that are much more happier, and that's because they're at peace with themselves from within. And I think, like Ron said, you have to really address those issues to really. I guess when you're happy with yourself, you can achieve anything you want.
I definitely agree. And so sometimes people will say just because you have more doesn't mean you will be happier. But it also means that even if you do have more, you still have the possibility to be happy. Like you said, it just has to come from within. It's not attached to a specific dollar amount or even a goal in life, achieving a certain rank, achieving a certain level, achieving a certain level of success. It just comes down to being happy with you and being happy with who you are. We have had an incredible show today. I found it very interesting, very entertaining, and informative, which I believe is the most important thing. But it's just always so interesting to me the common themes and the common threads that run through all the guests that appear on the Roundtable Talk Show. Now, we are coming down to the last few minutes of the show. And what I love to do at the end of every show is just simply allow my guests the opportunity to speak directly to the audience, to everyone who is watching this show live, as well as everyone who is watching in the archives, and let them know what you want them to take away from your appearance here today. And we're going to start with you, Glenn.
So the most important thing for me, for people to take away, is work on your personal growth, because that's going to help you in the long run. The more you teach yourself, the more you learn, the more you connect with other people and lean on other people for help. Because we're here to help each other. One person can't build a business by themselves, or one person cannot grow their personal self by themselves. They need people to help them, and when they help you, you help other people as well, and together we'll all grow.
Mhm. And where can people find more information about you, Glenn?
Most of the information is on our website at bpssecuritysa.com, or on my LinkedIn under Glen Bhimani.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Glenn. Michael, what do you have for the people?
I just want to say that I'm a true example of somebody who has overcome a lot of different obstacles in my life, and that nothing is impossible in terms of mental illness that can hold you back, and there's nothing that's impossible in terms of alcoholism. There is a way out, and I found both. Um, just don't give up on yourself.
Hmm. And how about your book?
My book is called Beyond the Shadows into the Light, which explores a lot of these issues and how I did find a way out, and available on Kindle app.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Dr. Ron, what do you have for the people?
It's really understanding that it's in personal development and through that personal development that you're able to develop your organization. Developing your organization, that you begin to really create a more conscious and caring world. And that's really the focus of all of my work. And so if anybody wants to find out more about that, Ron Stotts, Stotts, Ron Stotts at ronstotts.com, and they're welcome to pick up a free 9 insightful questions. That's just right on the website there, and those questions will begin that journey for them, support them going on that inner journey where they begin to understand really what they want more than anything else, what's holding, that's their biggest challenge, and the gap in between, and what they can do to really to create that fulfilling life that they're looking for and certainly worthy of.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love it. This has been an incredible show. And I believe it is a wonderful way to end the week. Such an amazing show. I want to thank you all for being guests on today's episode of the Roundtable Talk Show. And I especially want to thank everyone who tuned in to watch this show live, as well as everyone who is watching it in the archives. I definitely appreciate your support. But as always, the most important thing to me is that you support our guests. Our guests are here this morning to provide you with their stories, their information, their expertise, their wisdom. So please support them. Their website link is in the Facebook post. Follow them on social media, reach out to them, send them a message. And when you do, please let them know Sharifah Hardie says hi. Now, if you're interested in more ways that I can help your business, or maybe you want to be a guest on the Roundtable Talk Show, please visit my website at AskSharifah.com. Until Monday morning, everyone have a safe, a happy, a blessed holiday weekend. Bye now.